Most people think mental toughness means being the loudest voice in the room, the one who never backs down from a fight, or the person who dominates every conversation. But true mental strength isn't loud. It isn't aggressive. It doesn't announce itself with grand gestures or dramatic displays. Real mental toughness is quiet, steady, and unshakable. It's the kind of strength that the ancient Stoics understood deeply, a strength that comes not from controlling others, but from mastering yourself. In a world that celebrates the external show of power, the Stoics knew that the greatest battles are fought and won in the silence of your own mind. The Stoics taught that mental toughness begins with understanding what you can and cannot control. Epictetus, who spent years as a slave before becoming one of history's greatest philosophers, knew this truth intimately. He said that we are disturbed not by things themselves, but by our judgments about those things. The mentally tough person doesn't waste energy fighting reality or demanding that the world conform to their wishes. Instead, they focus entirely on their response, their choices, and their character. When you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, you discover an inner fortress that cannot be breached by external circumstances. Marcus Aurelius understood that true strength comes from emotional mastery, not emotional suppression. In his private journal, which we now know as Meditations, he wrote about the importance of observing your emotions without being enslaved by them. The Stoic doesn't pretend emotions don't exist. They acknowledge them, examine them, and then choose their response consciously. When anger rises, the mentally tough person doesn't explode or bottle it up. They pause, breathe, and ask themselves what this emotion is trying to teach them. They use reason as their guide, not impulse as their master. Seneca taught that comfort is the enemy of growth, and that true mental resilience comes from deliberately embracing discomfort. He practiced poverty exercises, sleeping on hard floors and eating simple meals, not because he was masochistic, but because he understood that mental toughness must be trained like a muscle. When you voluntarily face small discomforts, you build the capacity to handle unavoidable hardships with grace. The Stoic seeks out cold showers, difficult conversations, and challenging tasks not to punish themselves, but to forge an unbreakable spirit. One of the most powerful Stoic practices is the art of detachment from outcomes. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that he could control his effort, his intention, and his character, but never the results. The mentally tough person gives everything they have to their work, their relationships, and their goals, then releases attachment to specific outcomes. This isn't indifference, it's wisdom. When you're not desperate for particular results, you perform better because you're not clouded by anxiety about failure. You become like water, adapting to any container while maintaining your essential nature. The Stoics mastered the art of presence, understanding that mental toughness requires staying grounded in the current moment rather than being hijacked by past regrets or future anxieties. Seneca wrote that most of our suffering comes from reliving yesterday's pain or rehearsing tomorrow's problems. The mentally tough person practices returning their attention to the here and now, where their actual power resides. They deal with what is, not what was or what might be. This presence creates an unshakable calm that others mistake for coldness, but is actually the deepest form of strength. Reason over impulse became the Stoics' greatest weapon against mental weakness. While others react from emotion, the Stoic responds from wisdom. They pause between stimulus and response, asking themselves what the most rational course of action would be. This doesn't mean becoming emotionless, it means becoming thoughtful. The mentally tough person doesn't say whatever comes to mind or act on every feeling. They process, evaluate, and choose their words and actions based on virtue rather than impulse. Perhaps the most challenging Stoic concept is amor fati, love of fate. This means not just accepting what happens to you, but embracing it as necessary for your growth. Marcus Aurelius wrote that what stands in the way becomes the way. The mentally tough person doesn't just endure hardship, they find the opportunity hidden within every obstacle. They understand that everything that happens, even the painful experiences, is contributing to their strength and wisdom. This isn't naive optimism, it's a profound recognition that resistance to reality only creates additional suffering. The Stoic reframes failure and adversity as valuable feedback rather than personal attack. When something goes wrong, the mentally tough person doesn't waste energy on self-pity or blame. They ask practical questions. What can I learn from this? How can I improve? What opportunity is hidden in this setback? They treat failures like a scientist treats failed experiments, as useful data that brings them closer to success. This mindset transforms every setback into a setup for a comeback. Mental toughness, in the Stoic sense, is about building an inner citadel that remains unshaken regardless of external storms. It's about developing such clarity of purpose and strength of character that you become immovable in the face of adversity. The Stoic doesn't need to prove their toughness to anyone because it's not a performance, it's a way of being. They carry themselves with quiet confidence, speak with measured wisdom, and face challenges with steady resolve. True mental toughness isn't loud or flashy. It doesn't need an audience or applause. It's forged in the quiet moments when no one is watching, in your daily choices, your private thoughts, and your response to life's inevitable challenges. The Stoics understood that real strength is invisible to most people because it operates at the level of character rather than behavior. It's built through thousands of small decisions to choose virtue over convenience, wisdom over impulse, and growth over comfort. The mentally tough person doesn't collapse when life gets hard. They become harder to move. They stand like an ancient oak tree, bending with the wind but never breaking, their roots growing deeper with every storm they weather.